Welcome to Innergetics with Kim and Veronica, where we invite you to nourish the energy of your inner why, your inner healing, magic, prosperity, your curiosity, clarity, playfulness. Welcome home. Hello and welcome to our next episode of the Innergetics podcast. I am Veronica and I'm here joined by my beautiful partner, Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hello, Miss Veronica. Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
Hi, everyone. We're so grateful you're here. If you're listening for 2 seconds or 30 minutes and you're watching us or listening or whatever it is, we appreciate your contribution. Every little piece of your contribution contributes to what comes forth and the energy and the consciousness and the conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we just really love to come together, just talk about what we've been living and exploring and embodying for the last several decades as we have been exploring the self-improvement, the self-development, the human potential movements and the healing and all of that, and worked with many clients over the years, and just really like to share what works for us, what doesn't work for us, and really truly believe that everybody's journey is different and it doesn't have to look like ours, but we're happy to share our experiences. And Kim, where can folks find you?
Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Like at this point, what is this, 2025? We have 55, almost 56 years experience between us. Woman, like that's crazy, right? All right. So yeah, you can find me. Probably the best place to find me is growingbeyond.com. You can get my email from there. You can hook up with Facebook because I'm on there at Kim Coleman, Instagram, kimcoleman.growingbeyond. Yeah. So my website, then you can send me an email if you want or anything like that. If you have any questions or comments. What about you, love?
Amazing. And I can be found on Instagram at the Veronica Rose. That's Roze. So, Kim, we thought we'd talk about a fun topic today called validation.
Eek!
Yeek! We,
Eek!
you hear a lot in this industry. Oh, I didn't turn my light on. I turned my light on. We hear a lot in this industry. It was charged about. We hear a lot about self-love. We hear a lot about self-validation, about how we of self-empowerment, right? And how important that is. And it can be really dismissed as a very fluffy topic. And yet, if we don't value ourselves, if we don't know deep within our bones the beauty, the magic, the wisdom that we bring to this planet as this being, then we are turning off the power that we generate. And that completely impacts our experience of reality. And one of the ways that we do that, one of the ways that we turn off that dial is by seeking for validation outside of ourselves. And it's interesting because we've been primed since we were young kids to get that validation. Did I do well on this test? Did I do well in this sport, right? As little kids, we're looking for that validation, and that's confirming that we are along the right path as kids. But at some point, we never give that up for most of us. And that really turns down how powerful we can be in this reality. And so it's really, really helpful to look at where are we seeking for validation outside of ourselves. And I can tell you for myself personally, I seek validation from my father, who, obviously that's a childhood experience that I've carried with me into adulthood, but I seek his validation for, am I doing well in my career? Am I doing well as, the family that I'm building? But I also seek validation in a lot of other ways, like in my career. How well am I doing in career and with money? Money's a big one that I've I've dove deep over the last 2 decades in the energetics of money and the mindset of money and all the things that allow for more wealth. And I am experiencing more wealth today than I ever have. And I still, have more recently become aware of how much I look to money for that validation. Like if that money went away today, what would that mean about me? Right. And it would mean something, and that's a problem. So we seek for validation, and the other thing too that I was sharing with you, Kim, before the call is how I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she's always seeking validation because they're at that age where they're really looking for it from their parents, from their teachers. And I do validate her, and I encourage her, and I celebrate her, and I'm also very mindful of the fact that that's a slippery slope because she needs to start to validate herself instead of seeking it outside, because that's something that she'll carry with her for life, and can be quite harmful if we're dimming our light by looking for validation outside of ourselves. What you got?
You know what? I love that the way that you're bringing this forward, because here's where I'm going. I think there's like, to me, there I'm a big, huge fan of give credit where credit's due, right? So give credit where credit is due. Such a big fan of that. And if I can acknowledge your greatness, then that can actually even allow you to receive even more of your own greatness and to activate more of your own greatness. And so I'm not sure if I see it as a slippery slope more as much as when we can acknowledge someone's greatness, invite them to also acknowledge their own greatness, so that it's both, so that it's not just seeking for validation in the outside world, but also, also acknowledging it within myself. And so, it's kind of like when somebody validates me, that feels friggin' good. It's kind of like, when people, we had a chat, I don't know how long ago, about, signs, right? People see signs, and to them, that's validation from the universe that they're on the right track, right? And so that can be fun, right? So I think that as kids, it's kind of the same thing when they're looking for validation. Am I on the right track? Because hey, nobody showed us how to be human on this planet, right? And so we're learning how to be human. And yeah, I think the slippery slope for me and what you shared, Miss Veronica Rose, is I think that if I don't know my greatness unless somebody else says it, I think that might be the difference for me, is what's coming as we're sitting here talking. So that's what I love about just hanging out, and it's like we hang out and see what awarenesses show up, and hey, we might change our mind tomorrow, and that's fine too, because that's what consciousness is. It's about, this is how I am today, that can change tomorrow. But yeah, that's what I'm getting, is validation is giving credit where credit is friggin' due, right? And acknowledging somebody, and I see it as a real gift. But if I only see my gifts if it's acknowledged by someone else. So when somebody acknowledges me, can I receive it? Right? When someone validates my greatness, can I receive it? Or am I like, no, 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 no? There's so much to this conversation. I'm so glad that we chose and you brought this forward to chat about today. Cause yeah, it's like there's giving credit where credit's due. There's acknowledgement, there's validation. Can you receive that? Or do you push it away? And do you not know your greatness unless somebody else puts words to it or a hug to it or whatever, right? Does that, yeah. What you got on that? That's
Yeah,
where
exactly.
that's where you took me. That's where I went.
Yeah, it's true, and that's exactly what I meant with my daughter, and with kids, is like I've always validated her and celebrated her, but I'm also really conscious of the fact that she can't only get it from us, and
Right.
so there's a fine balance there. And so I see myself as a 50-year-old woman who's seeking validation outside of myself still,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
I've been deep in this work, for decades. And so how do I, at this crucial age for her, make sure that she's not depending on that external validation, even, but to your point, still able to receive the celebration and
Mm.
validation and acknowledgement. It's a fine line. So haven't solved that one yet, but I do believe that in terms of like us as adults, as we start to look at, well, where am I placing that validation? Where am I seeking that validation externally? So is it with, leadership in a company? Is it with my partner, my spouse? Is it with my children? Is it with my friends? Am I making it mean something if I don't have a big enough social circle? Am I making it mean something about me if I'm not getting enough likes on social media or comments on social media, or my audience isn't growing enough on social media? And if my bank account's not growing, am I making that mean something about me? Am I looking at other people that have gigantic bank accounts, comparing it to mine and saying, well, they must have something I don't have. They must be something that I'm not,
Right.
and making that mean something about me, when in fact it's that judgment alone, that external seeking of validation, that could be the thing that's preventing you from having the wealth. It's kind of it's a
Right.
riddle.
Yeah. And so being able to validate it within first, is that what you kind of mean? Like being able
100%.
to, right. I love that. Yeah. And cause you know what? It's that thing of the validation for me is that I matter. Right. And, and doing things right. Uh, there's so much in that because we've been taught to do things right, stand in line, right? Meaning we're taught how to stand in line at recess and all, or I don't know if they even do that anymore, but anyway, yeah, so that kind of stuff. So yeah, for me, it's when I don't get included, if I don't get an invite, that's when I feel like what's been validated is the wrongness of me, the I don't matter. And that's what it validates for me. So definitely, um, it's like an evidence thing. Oh, look, they didn't invite me again. Okay, I do not matter to those people. And that kind of stuff is the validation thing for me. Um and if I have that belief, then of course I'm going to see that everywhere. Oh, look, and I don't matter there, and I don't matter there, and oh, look, there it is over there. Because the way that the brain works with the reticular activation system or center, I can never remember. Anyway, the reticular activation, if I only have this filter that sees, the thing, then that's the filter I will see everything through in that particular area. So that's where I get to go, oh, look at that. I'm seeking validation and not make myself wrong, right? Yeah, not make myself wrong for it, but definitely become aware of it. Oh, look, I'm seeking validation through an invite, through being included, right? And that's mine. That's my one right there, is the invites and being included, and you know that.
Yeah, and I personally believe, and Kim and I are very strongly advocate that not everyone has to believe what we believe. But for me
No.
personally, one of the things I believe is that as a soul, a lot of us come here to really experience that self love, that self validation, that self healing, and to really know ourselves and appreciate ourselves right to the core of our beings. And that's a big part of our journey here, is to become intimate with ourselves and to give ourselves everything, and
Yeah.
allow the external reality to be an experience, up and down and fun and challenging, but really it's about generating everything within, and it's self-fulfilling. And so when we start to notice, we start to ask the question, where am I seeking validation outside of myself? And just start with noticing.
Mm,
Start with a question, start with the noticing. And when you notice that, yeah, I'm seeking for something outside of myself to validate myself, look how you can give that to yourself. So if I'm looking for a romantic partner, I'm single and I'm looking for a romantic partner, and that, if I haven't found one, that means something about me. where can you give that to yourself? Well, where can you romanticize yourself? Right? And so if you're looking for money, where can you feel wealthy with what you do have? And so I think, Kim and I talk a lot about how the first step, and it can be the biggest step, is the noticing. It's the awareness. It's
Yeah,
starting to ask the
always.
question and starting to explore. And it doesn't have to mean that you have to really get everything right away, but just start questioning and start asking, where am I seeking validation outside of myself? And where can I start generating that from within for myself? Where can I
Yeah.
start giving that to myself? Like, imagine if I could teach my 8-year-old how to do that, how powerful she would be as a woman going into adadulthood.
Well, I'm
That's my
sure you
task.
will. I'm sure you will, Miss Veronica. I'm sure you
taking it
will.
on.
Yeah, you know what? When you bring like the thing, definitely be willing to self-validate. We were taught, well, my generation was so definitely taught not to know, know how awesome you are, right? Because that would be conceited and vain and egotistical. And, you didn't want to, oh, she thinks she's all that kind of stuff, right? And you definitely didn't want to be that girl in high school who people were like, oh, look, she thinks she's all that. What's wrong with thinking you're all that? Right? And so, so in my generation, that was not okay. And so, so self-validation wasn't really something that was, I would say, was nurtured. Um, because it wasn't about thinking you were all that. That was considered vain and egotistical and conceited. Now, when I'm with somebody and they say they don't want to seem that way, I'll say, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. To me, being vain, egotistical, and conceited is if I think I'm better than everyone else. There's a difference between knowing how awesome I am and knowing that, or thinking that I'm better than everyone else, right? There's a total difference between that. And so, yeah, know your awesomeness, do the self-validation. And as you said, just start to notice where you're looking for it outside because you don't have it inside, right? Receive the validation and receive when someone's given credit where credit's due. Receive the acknowledgement, but also be aware of be aware of when, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. What am I trying to say, Veronica? Be aware of when you're looking for it outside because your cup
Mm-hmm.
is empty, right?
Yes,
Because your cup,
exactly.
like what if we were to start acknowledging, oh my God, I'm so awesome at this, that, and the other thing. What if we made a list, whether it's mentally or on a piece of paper, of all the things that we know we're great at, even if it's like, you know what, I put my lips on pretty darn good today. Right? It doesn't have to be that I've got 500 million thousand followers, but it can be that too. But to look at the little things that you do on the daily that you're actually really good at, and maybe, or just even a little bit good at. So acknowledging, so that you're validating your own greatness within. And so just those little steps and the big steps. But you're right about the money thing. Woo! You're right about the money thing for sure, right? We tend to measure our success, a lot of people do, um, through how much money is in my bank account, how many followers I have, how many people are listening to this podcast, right? We could decide we're successful or not successful by looking at, okay, how many people are following us on our podcast, right? How many clients did I have last week? How many do I have next week? I could make that a measure of my success, right? Which is so interesting because I can have a person come for one session and see them 5 years later and they're like, yeah, everything changed. Well, I wouldn't know that if I haven't seen them for 5 years. It would be easy for me to go, well, it must have sucked. I haven't seen them and I haven't heard from them. I do tend to do a follow-up call, right? For sure. But yeah, so if I was always seeking for that external validation, which, hey, we all do it, right? We all do it. If I was thinking I sucked with the work I do with my clients because, hey, I might see somebody and then I don't hear from them, right? I could make that mean that nothing happened, nothing changed. But I know maybe, I wonder if I'm seeking for validation when I reach out and say, hey, because I'll often reach out a week later and say, what have you noticed since? Because I'm looking for them to bring it into their own awareness, right? Is what my agenda is, so to speak. And if they have any questions. But is it a sneaky back door for me looking for validation? I don't know.
Well, I know you well enough. I think that'd be a very small component of it, because I do believe, like, when someone goes through a session and things change, it's you think that you'll be so aware of the change, but you're
Right,
not until you're asked about it, right? Like, often when we lead
right.
programs, we really invite folks to be very clear where they start, and, like, let's, at the end of the program, let's look back at where we started, because it feels so natural, because we're just really stepping into our truth. So we
You're right.
forget, we don't realize. So I think I think it's great that you do the follow-up.
Thanks.
But yeah, but yeah, one of our mentors once said something, or she's probably said it many times, that she believes that there's sometimes energetic protection, where it's almost like the universe is like, well, I'm not going to give it to you in this way, because then you're going to think that's the way that you're going to get it, right? So thinking about money as an example, if you're making money the validator of who you are, the universe is going to come in and protect you, to say you're not actually going to receive the money until you self validate, if that makes sense. So it's
Mm,
like, the universe doesn't want you to think like, oh, I validated money, I made it the thing that validates me, and then I got it, so I need to keep putting money on this pedestal and keep pursuing it for my own self validation. The universe will instead stop that growth, that financial growth, to be like, no, 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 this is not the path. The path is self validation, creating the wealth from within, and then it comes to you. Money's not on the pedestal. You experience it once you've experienced that self validation and that wealth within. So I think that's an interesting concept that I heard from her, that I've toyed with from time to time. Like, if we can, it's again a like a riddle for our mind, because it's like, okay, I want to pursue the wealth because that's what I want to experience, and I will feel good once I have it, but I actually can't pursue it through for the seeking of validation. It's the only way I can get it is if I don't truly want it, kind of. So it's a tricky one, right? I've got to create it from within, and then it'll come. But interesting contemplation.
it is, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's always interesting how when you're in groups or something and you're meeting people and they're like, "So what do you do?" Right? It's a yeah, it's always a funny thing. It's like, yeah, there's that I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. It's always an awkwardness because it's like people also will measure your success through what you do, right? Often, I'm very aware of that. I mean, I've been doing energetics since the 90s, right? And so to, back in the 90s when somebody would ask me, "So what do you do?" It would be like, "Oh geez." Like they in the 90s it just was like unheard of. So I often didn't feel validated in certain groups. Uh for somebody who was brilliant or intelligent or whatever. And yeah, it was always an awkwardness for me. And yeah, I think it does now that we're talking about it, I think it was a validation of success or not, which was validated by financial status back then a lot more than it is now. I think it's a lot more less now. I don't know. But yeah, the validation thing. What is it for you? What is the validation thing for you? What does it look like? And would you be willing to start validating you more? Right? Validating you, whether, wow, I got a lot done today, or, ooh, I didn't get a lot done today. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I think that, so what would you suggest as awarenesses on working with validating self? Like I said, for me, it's about give credit where credit's due, people.
Yeah.
If you're having a
Yeah.
good day, thank you, whatever it is, even if it's, just give credit. You had a bad day, and guess what? You're okay. Right? So giving credit where credit due, I think is, well, for me, is definitely um, a form of validation that I give. But can I give that, also to myself? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like what you brought forth earlier about how it was really trained out of us, right? And the
Yeah.
effort to eliminate the conceitedness, the ego, putting themselves on a pedestal, which really all of that comes ironically from insecurity, right? People would only do that if they feel insecure within themselves. But in a way to kind of close that gap and try to eliminate that as much as we can, we were just taught to turn that down and be humble and
Yeah.
not self celebrate and not self validate and not self empower. And so we're relearning how to really recognize the beauty, the gifts that we bring. And if you're listening to this conversation, you are powerful, you are beautiful, you are magical, right? You wouldn't be listening to this if you weren't. And so it's really
Ah,
about seeking that, looking for it, celebrating any validation that comes, but don't only allow it to be external. It's fun to celebrate if somebody acknowledges you. It's fun to feel the good things when they come, but don't let that be your only source of validation. It needs to come from within first.
you know what? Isn't that's the word oxytocin? Is it oxytocin? Yeah. Um, Yeah, that's popping into my brain. Yeah. So giving it to yourself so that is it a hormone? Is it
Yeah.
oxytocin? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that
Yeah.
that hormone can do its thing, and you know what? Yeah, one of our mentors, Melanie, she speaks of that a lot for young girls, like or young people. How they feel so good when one of their friends is validating them because it activates and releases that hormone oxytocin, which is a feel good hormone. However, if we could teach our young girls, and including ourselves and boys and everybody, how to release that within themselves, then they would stop looking for it from, oh, but that guy or that girl just, it feels so good when she's always telling me how pretty I am, or what an awesome, all of that. Yeah, receive that, but not make them the source, right? Not making them the source. So yeah, there's so many ways that we can release our own oxytocin. I
I
tend to,
love that you
the
brought
word,
that in.
yeah, when I'm like, is it oxytocin? Because I know there's that other word. It's oxycontin, right? That's a drug. That's like a no, 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 not that. I'm like, so I had to ask for validation. So sometimes it's a
Confirmation.
good thing. Yeah, there you go. Confirmation. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that oxy, you know what? We should do a podcast on that, on
I
the
agree. Yeah.
oxytocin, and because yeah, that is such a thing. It's actually a feel good hormone, people,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
it's really easy. I'm going to speak for myself. When I was a young girl, if a boy was like ooh la la, it made me feel ooh la la, and then it was easy for me to just be ooh la la. Right. Yeah, you got your mic turned
Exactly.
off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, cool. How do you feel? You
Well,
feel
thank
complete for
you. I feel
today?
complete. Thanks, everyone. And again, just just start asking the question and looking in your world. Where are you seeking validation outside of yourself, and how could you begin to
Mm,
turn within and generate that within? That
yeah,
alone
and
will. Mhm.
go.
That alone
That
will
alone.
change things dramatically for you.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know what? You know what's just coming now, and I know we're done for the day, but um that validation is feel good often, right? And the feel good is the oxytocin, which, what else can we do to feel good? That's a part of it. The validation, that's just a part is it activates that yeah. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. I love it.
And
Thank
so
you.
remember,
We appreciate
thank
you.
you. And remember to what? Do all the things.
Do all
What
the
are the
things, like,
things?
subscribe, share, all the things. If you feel that anyone could benefit from this conversation or any of our conversations, we really, really appreciate you sharing the love. And we accept any 5-star reviews on any of the platforms.
Yay!
And comments. Thanks for your feedback. Love you, everyone. Talk to you next time.
Awesome.